October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Many people don't even realize that domestic violence is more than just physical violence. Yes, the numbers related to physical violence in the United States are staggering. There are statistics that show that every minute 20 people are a victim of domestic violence, and that during their lifetime, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience severe physical violence by their domestic or intimate partner. Hi, my name is Mohammad Saleem, and in this video, I want to speak about what are the domestic violence laws related to immigrants who are some of the most vulnerable when dealing with issues related to domestic violence. I've been practicing law since 2010, specifically with a focus on immigration law. And this video is going to cover some of the laws that are there to protect immigrants who are experiencing domestic violence. To begin, immigrants in the United States who are married to a United States citizen are protected by multiple sets of laws in relation to violence that they may encounter, specifically domestic violence, and also other types of extreme cruelty. There is VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act, which also includes men as well who are victims of certain types of violence and acts of extreme cruelty and behavior. And then also something that's important that I want to focus in on is there are additional laws that protect a person who is a green card holder who obtained their green card through a U.S. citizen spouse. That's one of the most common encounters that I've come across in my practice area, and I want to talk about how those people are protected. Specifically, immigrants who married a U.S. citizen, got their green card, a conditional green card, and then came to the United States. Oftentimes, the way the immigration process works is that a U.S. citizen will go overseas, male or woman, and marry a person from there, their husband or their wife, file a petition to bring them to the United States. That petition will get approved. A visa will be given. When that person comes to America, they get a conditional 2-year green card. In many of the encounters with my clients, what happens is that those conditional green cards are required to be have their conditions removed within that 2-year period. As they get closer to that 2-year period, they must file for removal of conditions. And some of the instances that I've encountered where there's some sort of domestic violence or abuse or extreme cruelty is that one of the spouses will perhaps not be accommodating to that person having the conditions removed so they get a 10-year green card. And there oftentimes can be domestic violence involved. So I want to talk about how the domestic violence can impact a green card holder, a conditional green card holder in that situation, and what rights a conditional green card holder has to protect their immigration status, get a 10-year green card, get the conditions removed, and not have to worry about being put in removal proceedings. So when a spouse of a U.S. citizen, husband or wife, in this case, let's use the wife for an example. Many cases that I've represented, those types of clients, those women are facing some sort of domestic violence. And again, like I said, domestic violence is not just physical violence. That is perhaps the most common form of domestic violence, where you have physical abuse, battery, but it can also be psychological, emotional. It can also be financial as well, and some sort of stalking, cyber stalking, other types of control as well. Domestic violence is just not physical abuse. It's more than that. And interestingly enough, immigration laws have recognized that for a long period of time. And USCIS, through its rules and regulations, has allowed for a provision within the removal of conditions for a battered spouse and also someone who is facing extreme cruelty. by their U.S. citizen spouse to file an application on their own, say that they are a victim of battery, abuse, extreme cruelty by their U.S. citizen spouse, and that they should not have to file a joint application to remove their conditions and be able to do that. I want to talk about one specific case of my client, a woman who got married in good faith to her husband, a U.S. citizen from my country of Pakistan. I'm originally from Pakistan. I'm an immigrant as well. And she came to the United States on a conditional green card. And within a year of her coming to the United States, her husband's attitude towards her changed. There was physical violence involved, but a large amount of the abuse that she encountered was psychological, emotional, financial control. And I'll speak about that. You know, for her specifically, aside from him having hit her once on occasion, he controlled everywhere that she went. She could not really leave the house without his permission or his family's permission. She had no access to money. He constantly berated her, made her feel worthless. You know, in addition to, you know, the emotional abuse, it took a psychological toll upon her to a point where she often thought about, you know, if it's better for her to perhaps maybe even end her life. You know, those thoughts of depression encountered her, she went into depression as a result of that. And oftentimes he would tell her that it's all your fault, you're the one. And she started to think that maybe there was something wrong with her. It was her fault in the relationship. And around the time she kept being with him, you know, in the marriage, because she didn't realize that as a person facing domestic violence and abuse and so forth, she had other rights available to her to protect her within the United States. You know, she could have gotten order of protection. She could have gotten other things to protect herself, you know, protect her husband in instances where he abused her by calling the police to do something, to intervene. Or even seek therapy, counseling, and other sorts of things and helps within the community. And nevertheless, you know, she still stayed with him, hoping that, you know, maybe things will get better and so forth. But she realized after about a year and a half, 2 years, as she was getting closer to that conditional green card period time, that her husband's intention was not to even let her stay in the United States. He had openly told her that he wanted her gone and talked about her, you know, he could get her deported if he wanted, and talked about that openly, took her green card documents and other things like that as well, hid important documents from her as part of that abuse and that narrative, because really didn't want her in the United States anymore and was thinking about an easy way to just have her be out of his life. So in that scenario, you know, we represented the client, my law firm. We filed an individual 751 petition for her and allowed her to be able to, you know, petition to immigration saying that, you know, she's the victim of, you know, domestic violence, physical abuse, specifically, as well as emotional, you know, psychological and other types of extreme cruelty. The key term there is that we presented her case to USCIS that she was a victim of extreme cruelty by her U.S. husband spouse, and as a result of that, you know, she should be able to self-petition and remove her conditions and get a 10-year green card without having to even be, you know, living with her husband anymore or even married to her husband anymore. And USCIS agreed with us and granted her a green card based upon the abuse and extreme cruelty, which are all part of the domestic violence laws that are here in the United States to protect vulnerable people, intimate partners as well. And it's especially relevant to immigrants because domestic violence is real, it's prevalent within the community, and that we want to raise awareness of this issue and let immigrants know that they have rights if their U.S. citizen spouse is subjecting them to domestic violence or other types of abuse and cruelty. You know, it's not just physical, it can be emotional, psychological, financial, as well as stalking, control, cyber stalking, or other forms related to their family and